Hello, Concord Junior High Algebra students. This is your teacher once again, Mr. Rock, with a video. Today's topic is solving for a variable. And look at this bat right here. That's the letter V. It's pretty cool, isn't it? Okay, so our first problem is this. This is a cone, one of my favorite objects in geometry, because whenever I use a cone, it's usually filled with something good to eat, like ice cream or a slushie. Here's the equation for the volume of a cone. The volume here is equal to pi r squared times h divided by 3. This tells you how much space is inside the cone. And of course, when you order ice cream, you want to get the biggest cone possible because it has the most space for ice cream. That's just my preference anyway. So we're going to rewrite this equation. Instead of it being solved for V, the volume, we're going to solve this equation for h, the height. And the first step to doing that is just to multiply both sides by 3. So I get 3 times V equals pi r squared h. And then the second step is just to divide by pi r squared. And in the end, you get h is equal to 3 times the volume divided by pi r squared. So if you know the volume of a cone and you know the radius of a cone, then you can use that information to figure out the height of a cone. Here's our next example. It should be familiar to you. It's my favorite one-liner. This is called the slope-intercept equation, y equals mx plus b. And this is the y value, equal sign. M is the slope. Here's the x value, plus the y-intercept b. And we are going to solve this equation for the slope, right here, m. We're going to solve it for m. So we're going to write down the equation, y equals mx plus b. And I think the first thing we're going to do is subtract b from both sides. So I get y minus b equals the slope times x. Then divide both sides by x. And you get the slope is equal to y minus b divided by x. And that's what I mean by solving for the slope. Most of the time when you have this equation, you solve for b. So b is just equal to y minus m times x. But that's a one-stepper. We can do that one too. Rectangles. We're going to have lots of rectangle problems coming up here soon. Let's work out a problem here. Let's start with the perimeter first. Perimeter equals 2 times the width times 2 times the length. So perimeter is distance around, right? So if I'm running around this rectangle and I'm staying on the rectangle, 1 lap around the rectangle is equal to the perimeter. And when I take a look at what I've just traced out, here is one L called the length. Here is another L called the length. So we have 2 L's. Here's a Y. Here's a W. Here's a W. So there's 2W. So the perimeter is equal to 2w plus 2l. Let's go ahead and solve this equation for the width, w. So what can I do here? I'm actually going to use the reverse of the distributive property. I'm going to factor. It's called factoring, and we're going to learn a lot about factoring, but I'm going to rewrite this as 2 times w plus l. Now, if I use the distributive property, if I go beep, I get 2w, beep, I get 2l. So what I've done is the opposite of the distributive property. It's called factoring. I removed a 2. All right, so now I'm going to divide by 2. And I get p divided by 2 equals w plus l. Minus l from both sides. And I get p divided by 2 minus l equals w. So if I ever need to calculate the width, which sometimes I will, if I'm given the perimeter of the rectangle, and if I'm given the length of the rectangle, I can use this formula right here to calculate the width. Money, money, money! Money! All right, so this formula here is called simple interest. This is the formula that's used to calculate how much you have to pay to borrow money. And there are lots of variables in this. There is the I right here. That's the interest. That's how much money you are charged to borrow money. P is the principal. No, not Dr. Davis. This is a different principal. P is the original amount that is borrowed. R is the interest rate. They are going to charge you a percentage of the amount you borrowed. And that's going to determine how much interest you pay. And T is the time. How long are you going to borrow this money? So let's see here. Here's a problem. Okay, they want you to calculate the interest. Okay, you borrow $100. They're going to charge you 5% interest, and you're going to pay it back in 2 years. How much interest are you going to be charged? Well, it looks like if you put those numbers into the formula and you multiply, the answer is going to be $10. So when you go to repay the loan, you're not going to pay back $10. That would be great. If you could borrow $100 and pay back $10, that would be great. I'd be borrowing money all the time. But what that means is when you pay back the money, you have to pay back $110. You have to pay back the amount that you borrowed, and you have to pay back the amount you were charged in interest. Anyway, let's take this equation, I equals PRT. And let's go ahead and solve it for P. Let's solve it for the principal. This is going to be real quick. You divide by RT. So if you take the interest and you divide it by the rate and the time, you will get the principal. I should have been a financial officer. I know math really well. I can do these calculations really well. I could help people borrow money and make a lot of money. But teaching's good too. This next example is the Pythagorean Theorem. I better spell that out for you so you can see it. All right, I typed it instead because it takes up less space, but that's the Pythagorean Theorem. Okay, we are going to solve this Pythagorean, well, I should probably explain to you a little bit about it. A right here is a leg, B right here is a leg, The two legs make the 90-degree angle, which is right there, and C is the hypotenuse. As long as you know two of these numbers, you can use this equation to figure out the third number. It's a pretty cool theorem that you'll learn a lot about in geometry next year. Anyway, let's solve this equation for A. So I have A squared plus B squared equals C squared. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract B squared from both sides. So I get A squared equals C squared minus B squared. Then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the square root of each side. And what you get then is you get A equals the square root of C squared minus B squared. And the way that this is helpful is that if you know the length of the hypotenuse, and if you know the length of one leg, this equation right here will get you the length of the unknown leg. So it's very, very helpful when you work with right triangles. All right, well, this is the end of another exciting video. I hope you learned how to solve an equation for a variable. Remember to subscribe to my YouTube channel and like this video so I can make millions of dollars. Then I won't have to think about becoming a financial advisor anymore. I hope you guys have a good day. Bye.